All right, I'm here with an updated look at my Nintendo Game Boy Advance collection. It's been a while since I've updated this one. This is not a collection that gets new additions to it super often, but it's been years now since I've updated it. So I figured, at least in the new setup that I do where I have things stacking and have, more interesting view, I should probably update this video. Game Boy Advance was my first Nintendo system and the first system that I ever had, that was like concurrent, like a system when I was out. But I got mine when I was 6, so the games that was playing were games more intended for a 6-year-old. So I have a lot of blind spots as far as Game Boy Advance goes, and you'll see that kind of as this video goes. But I think it's really cool. I think it's a fun little system. It didn't have too long, but it was out in 2001, and then DS came out in 2004. And they tried to kind of have that third pillar thing, but DS obviously overtook it pretty quick. There weren't too many releases, big Game Boy Advance releases, other than like those Final Fantasy ports came out pretty late. But it was replaced pretty quick, which is so strange because it sold well. But I don't know. It's a pretty cool little 16-bit machine. I should say I know it's more powerful than that, but it played a lot of those Super Nintendo games. It was like a portable Super Nintendo in a way, even though I know it's 32-bit. But getting to my collection, I'm going to start with the complete in box stuff, so there's at least something to look at in the backdrop other than Mario Phone and the Virtual Boy. So the first one I had here is Breath of Fire. I got this box for really cheap at a store, and then I was able to complete it. So very cool there. Capcom JRPG series. I can't believe with Capcom kind of going through this renaissance they've been in, I'm kind of surprised that they've never really at least attempted to bring back Breath of Fire. But, it's not like a series I have too much representation with, or not representation, too much familiarity with, so I can't really say. But it's just strange that they've never done anything. Crash Bandicoot: The Huge Adventure. This, I think, was like a Goodwill find or something. I used to find games at the Goodwill. Could you imagine? These games are pretty solid. The Crash games on Game Boy Advance, they're from Vicarious Visions, I believe, who's kind of just got folded into Blizzard. But they did some pretty good ones there, and they play a lot like, like if the PS1 Crash games were side-scrollers, and they're kind of have that PS1 look. They're pretty solid. As far as, like, after Naughty Dog was done with Crash games, the handheld ones are pretty decent. The classic NES series Donkey Kong. I mean, it's NES Donkey Kong. It's cool that they did these, like $20 each or whatever back in the day. It is cool that they did those, but I mean, there's not a whole lot I can say about the NES version of Donkey Kong that hasn't been said. Fire Emblem. So this is the first Fire Emblem game we got in the West, but the 7th, I believe, Fire Emblem game. Someone correct me. I really like Fire Emblem a lot, the whole series. I also have Fire Emblem: The Sacred Stones. I really like the whole series a lot. So when I was able to get these, I used trade credit to grab these ones. Back in 2020, I was probably my best year of garage sailing. I was finding so much stuff. And also, game prices were inflated. And also, game stores were paying a lot more for games because they couldn't keep anything in stock. So I had a ton of trade credit stuff. And I, at one point, had like $2,000 in trade credit at my local game store. So I got a ton of really good Game Boy Advance games, and you'll see these kind of throughout. But, yeah, these ones are great. These are classic ones. I played the one that came... It was Sacred Stones, I believe, was the one that they put on the... it's been so long now. On the 3DS Ambassador. That's where I kind of first played Fire Emblem. But then I first really started getting into it with, I played the GameCube one, Path of Radiance, and then I played, my favorite one, and probably still is Awakening, though, but that was the one that really got me into the series. And people are not going to like this. I like the new Fire Emblem better than the old Fire Emblem, but it's all good. It's all good. Golden Sun, an old Camelot, classic style JRPG. Sad that Camelot doesn't do really anything but Mario sports games anymore, but maybe one day, they'll come back to Golden Sun. I think I have the other one too, but I've not played the other one, the second one, but I don't have it in the box. Gunstar Superheroes. This is a follow-up to Gunstar Heroes from Treasure, the Genesis game, and this one's pretty good too. Just a fun little running gun. I really like Gunstar Heroes. That game is a ton of fun on Genesis, and this is a pretty good little Game 2. It's been so long since I played it. A lot of these games, I'm sorry if I misspeak, but a lot of these games, it's been a while since I've played them. Like, I got them like 10, 11, 12 years ago, and then really haven't touched them in a while. So, you know, these ones are cool. I got these for dirt cheap at my local game store a couple years ago. By a couple years ago, I mean probably like 9 years ago, where they put these out for like $8 each, the Klonoa games on the Game Boy Advance. And I like Klonoa a lot, the PS1 game. That was a Goodwill find for me, but these were so cheap. And these are pretty fun ones too, as far as Game Boy Advance games go. I know that they've gone up in price, but if you like Klonoa and haven't tried these ones out, if you can track them down, they're pretty solid. So let's try to get this a little bit lined up better. A bit more of an interesting shot. Tomb Raider, The Prophecy. I don't really have any recollection. I mean, if I've played this, I have no recollection of it. NES Classics Zelda. So NES Zelda. That's a cool one. I mean, it's NES Zelda. Zelda Link to the Past with the Four Swords. Link to the Past, of course, a classic. It was so cool when they were just porting stuff like this to have on the Game Boy Advance, you know, console games. Even if it was like the last generation or even 2 generations, I suppose, console games. It was cool that they were doing that. And Four Swords as well. I've never properly played Four Swords with multiple people, but I know they have it on Switch online, so something I'd have to try out at some point. Minish Cap. I've never fully played through Minish Cap. It's one I need to play through. This is when Capcom had their kind of go at developing Zelda games. They did the Oracle games too. And I've heard that this one's good. I've just never played through it. This was another trade credit buy because I wanted to have it in the collection. My goal is to have like every Zelda game complete in the box, and I did not have this one. And I think I'm pretty close to that goal if I've not entirely hit it, not counting like the CDI games. But yeah, this is one that's kind of like I've missed out on. I've never... Another one of my blind spots that I've just never really hit. Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. I like this one a lot. I like the Mario and Luigi games. I think they got kind of weaker as they went on. I'm hoping the new one's good that comes out next month as of the time of this video. I'm hoping that one's good because I do feel like they kind of went downhill a little bit. But I like, you know, this one's a classic. It's sad that the Alpha Dream, the studio that developed these, is gone now. But this one's a classic. A lot of fun. They're fun, you know, fun writing, fun characters. And I've always really liked that more active battle, you know, encounters as well, having the timing based stuff and everything. I've always really liked that. So, but either Superstar Saga or Bowser's Inside Story are probably the best one. Mario Kart Super Circuit. I mean, cool to have handheld Mario Kart, but if I'm going to play Mario Kart, it's probably not going to be Super Circuit. But, you know, it's a cool novelty for the time as far as that goes. This is a garage sale find, actually, to get this complete in box for only a few dollars. Classic NES series Metroid. So, pretty cool there. Also have Metroid Fusion, another one of my 2020 trade credit buys. One that I need to play through all the way because I've heard great things, but I've always liked the Metroid Prime series better than 2D Metroid, but I do like 2D Metroid, and I've never fully played through Fusion, so that's one I have to fix at some point, but awesome to have in the collection for that fateful day. Pokemon Fire Red, a flea market find of all things, back in the day for like $5 or something. Doesn't have the manual, but cool to have it in the box. Remake of the classic, you know, Pokemon Red, one of the probably most influential games ever, for better or for worse. But yeah, I mean, it's Gen 1. It's going back. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team. I don't really like this type of game. I don't really like the Mystery Dungeon series, like that kind of roguelike gameplay. So this really isn't for me, but Pokemon Pinball, another one that's pretty fun, another garage sale find. People get really mad when I talk about like where I got the games or like whatever. I don't really get that. It's just a fun part of the story. I like to be able to say like, oh, I got this, you know, this game that has some value, but I got it at a good deal because I went out and it was cheap. If you've never watched my channel before, that's kind of the point of the channel. It's a collecting channel where I try to get stuff for cheap, so that's kind of something I bring up. But Pokemon Pinball, I mean, it's Pokemon Pinball. Cool to have it in the box. Sonic Advance, I don't have any of the other ones in the box, but I like these ones. These are good. It was weird that THQ came and published these, but I always liked these ones. Just Sonic was not in the best place at this time, but these were always pretty solid, and they continued on. Like the handheld Sonic is kind of where, if you want that classic Sonic, like good Sonic, or not like, you know, whatever Sonic, Sonic Heroes Sonic, or Shadow the Hedgehog, or Sonic 06, like, you know, you had the Sonic Advance games, Sonic Rush games, stuff like that. So don't overlook handheld Sonic, but don't overlook Sudoku Fever, which I got at a game convention for $1, and as you can see, it is sealed. Should I get this one graded? Leave down in the comments below if you think I should get this graded. Also, I should note that these all have box protectors on them, so if you're seeing like a plastic and reflection from the lights, that's what that is. Super Mario Brothers Classic NES series, probably the 900,000th way I own a version to play of Super Mario Brothers, so can never have too many though, am I right? I'm trying to just get a better, make more room. Super Mario Advance 2, Super Mario World. Don't get me started on the Super Mario Advance naming convention. It's so strange to me. And then we have Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Brothers 3. I still think it's a strange naming convention. Nothing's going to stop that from me. Stop me from thinking that. Sword of Mana. This was an old eBay, like 2013 old eBay buy that's like mint. And I got it for like $8, something like that. Like crazy stuff. But I've never played that one all the way through. I played some of it. It seemed cool, but Tron 2.0 Killer App. This is kind of an impressive one for the Game Boy Advance. I wouldn't say it's great, but some of the things, like some of the things they at least attempted was impressive for the Game Boy Advance. And whoever got this game in the box got it from Barjan, which I don't know what that is. So yeah, but somewhat impressive. Digital Eclipse actually was behind that one, who is now kind of just known as the retro, you know, studio, retro game collections studio. Wario Land 4, pretty fun platformer. Don't know why they don't make another Wario Land platformer, but pretty fun platformer. I like that kind of weird, just they're kind of odd, they're kind of weird. I like the mechanics of that compared to just a normal Mario. But X-Men 3, the official game. I got this at a Goodwill for like really cheap. It developed by Way Forward. I don't remember too much about it. I remember popping it in just because I thought it was interesting. It was developed by Way Forward, but I think it's just kind of a run-of-the-mill Game Boy Advance licensed game. I do have some Japanese in-box Game Boy Advance games as well. I've been to Japan twice. I didn't buy any Game Boy Advance games my second time, though. So we have Bomberman Story. So like a more, you know, RPG Bomberman-ish game. I gotta get it to a way where it's, you know, you can see the title. We have Ace Attorney 1. So if people who didn't know, the Ace Attorney series started on the Game Boy Advance back in 2001. We did not get these until the DS, starting, and I think we got them 2005, 2006, somewhere around there. But yeah, we didn't get these ever on the Game Boy Advance. I mean, it's pretty cool to pop them in and be like, oh man, play this on a Game Boy Advance. But yeah, and of course I'm a big fan. Wish I didn't have the best price variant. I bought this and I think the sticker was covering it, and I got home and took it off and I'm like, ah man. But I also have Ace Attorney 2. And Ace Attorney 3, the whole original trilogy were Game Boy Advance games for those who didn't know. So, super awesome. And then, of course, what is a Japanese Game Boy Advance collection, if not having Mother 3? My first time in Japan was 2018, and that you can tell that by the fact that Mother 3 was only 3,500 yen complete in the box. Um, so yeah, I've still never played the fan translation of Mother 3. I really am one of those people who are like, I'm going to play it when they officially release it. They have yet to do that, but one day. So that's my complete in box Game Boy Advance stuff. I'll go through my loose stuff. If I don't have anything to say about a game, it's not because it's bad. It's either just I don't have anything to say about it specifically, or it is just, you know, not super interesting. I maybe not have played it or anything like that. So, once again, nothing crazy. But when I say I was 6 years old, when I had a Game Boy Advance, you can tell that by the fact that I had games like Shark Tale, Herbie Fully Loaded, Monsters Inc., Shrek 2. These are like my original games I had as a kid. I never like traded them off or sold them or anything. Probably, but I mean, I was 6, so, you know. I also had, which I didn't really know anything about at the time, it was just a little racing game, but Road Trip, which is one of the, you know, Choro Q, that Japanese series, the Penny Racers. It's one of those. So as far as that goes, those are some of the games I had as a kid. But going through my collection, Flintstones. I think I just kept this because I got it at a garage sale for cheap and I threw it in with my Game Boy Advance. But maybe that's a great game. I don't know. I have the film Shark Tale on Game Boy Advance Video. So if you want to watch the Will Smith classic Shark Tale animated film, you can at like 5 frames per second with horrible audio at like 52p. Game Boy Advance Video is funny. It's very interesting, and they tried. I mean, it's a noble effort for sure, but it's not necessarily, you know, very good. But at the time, it was better than nothing. I also have this Pokemon one. These are in no order because I am just fishing them out of my Game Boy Advance cartridges. So they're in no particular order. I am just going to kind of go through it. Dragon Ball Z, Legacy of Goku. I've heard good things about this one. I think that one's like an RPG. I'm not a Dragon Ball fan by any means. Need for Speed Underground. The Game Boy Advance version of this one is a classic just for the fact that there is a bit-crushed version of Get Low by Little John in this. And it is somewhat impressive for being a game, you know, a 3D racing game on Game Boy Advance with licensed music, even if it is bit-crushed. But it's funny. Gladius Galaxies. The Pac-Man collection. The pack is back, guys. Mega Man and Bass. As far as Mega Man platformers go, not a great one, I'll just say. Legend of Spyro Eternal Night. I'm just kind of picking up random stacks of games and seeing where they take us here. Classic NES series Pac-Man. So, the NES port of Pac-Man on the Game Boy Advance. The Konami Arcade Advance Collection. Phantasy Star Collection. This one's pretty cool. I got this one for $0.25 at a garage sale. It has some classic Phantasy Star RPGs. Another series, I just don't know why Sega doesn't bring... I could see Sega doing really well with like a, you know, a AAA JRPG Phantasy Star game. It'd be pretty cool. But it's different from other fantasy games, being more science fiction based and everything. It's really cool. I wish that they'd bring that series back. Mega Man Battle Network Blue. This is another... I'm a big Mega Man fan, but I've never really played the Battle Network games, so that's another one that I've got to, you know, get through at some point. I also have the white version. 007 Nightfire. I don't even remember having this one, I'll be honest. Riviera the Promised Land. I got this really cheap at a game convention a while back, and yeah, it's an Atlas published RPG. So cool to have. Moving through here, grabbing some more games. The Crash and Spyro Super Pack. So this has 2 games on it. 1 Crash game, 1 Spyro game. Earthworm Jim. Mega Man Zero 2. These were the Indie Zero developed Mega Man games. ND0 went on to do their kind of own Mega Man-esque series, the Gunvolt series. But yeah, they did those ones first, and those ones are pretty cool. I haven't played all of those, but... The Game Boy Advance port of Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Don't remember anything about that. Sonic the Hedgehog. So this came out the same day as Sonic 2006 for Sonic's 15th anniversary. That sounds right, yeah. And they're both called Sonic the Hedgehog, and both came out in 2006 the same day. This is also a very poor port of Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, it's just kind of messed up. I don't know what went wrong, but this is just kind of a messed up port of Sonic the Hedgehog. So, not a great day for for games specifically called Sonic the Hedgehog. F-Zero GP Legend. I also have F-Zero Maximum Velocity. It's the last time we ever saw this series in any new, way. I think I prefer the 3D F-Zeros, like the console F-Zeros, but it's still cool to have them on a handheld. Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. So weird that they had two PS2 games. Or they had the PS2 original, and then they were like, all right, let's make a Game Boy Advance game to follow that up. Then a PS2 game. And then it's like they just kind of... Or sometimes we're on the DS. We're on the PSP for one. We got one on the 3DS. We're on PS4. All over the place. And it's like, man, the story was already pretty hard to comprehend. And now I got to go to every platform under the sun. This is a Pac-Man Maze Madness Pac-Man World little combo pack. Combo pack. You see what I did there? Pokemon Leaf Green. So that goes with my Pokemon Fire Red is the Gen 1 remakes. I'm not the person to really talk about Pokemon because I feel like every time I do, people get mad. Sonic Battle. This is a pretty forgotten game. It's nothing special. I got this a long time ago, and this was in a Game Boy Advance. I got it at a garage sale, and I'd never seen this game before, but it's just a kind of a weird Sonic fighting game, like kind of isometric from what I remember. Mario Golf Advance Tour. This is the one where it's like an RPG-style Mario Golf game, so... I like that. I feel like the Mario Golf games on console, like especially the new one on Switch, are just kind of like lacking content. And they tried to have like a story mode in the Mario Golf on the console, but it was like painfully boring. So, Tony Hawk's Underground 2. These ports are kind of interesting. They're kind of impressive, but I mean nothing that you would really need to go out of your way to play. Tasmanian Tiger 3: Night of the Quincan. I don't know. Tac 2, something. I can't read that. Staff of Dreams, the Game Boy Advance ports. I miss when there would be a game with the same name as the console version, but it would be the Game Boy Advance version. It'd be like vastly different game, but it's like, no, this is Tac 2, Staff of Dreams or whatever, and it would be a vastly different experience. Crash 2 Entranced, like I said earlier, these were pretty decent. These handheld Crash Bandicoot games. Donkey Kong Country, another one that's like, these were pretty impressive ports, porting the Super Nintendo games from the, Super Nintendo to the Game Boy Advance. I know there was also Donkey Kong Country on Game Boy Color as well. That was like an attempt at that, but this one is better. Finding Nemo, another one that I had when I was a 6-year-old. Game and Watch Gallery 4. They did 4 Game and Watch Galleries. I think that's the only Game Boy Advance one. Advance Wars 2. I have it for the first one in here somewhere. We might have already showed it. I don't remember. This is a cool series. They did the Advanced Wars remake of the first 2 games as well, which is cool. So... Super Mario Advance, so this is a kind of a remake of Mario 2, and then they go to Mario World, then they go to Mario 3, Yoshi's Island is in there, I think is Super Mario Advance 3, it's complicated, it's weird, I don't know what they were thinking there. Mario Pinball Land, this is a strange one, kind of an ugly pinball game with Mario in it, but, we're just looking for games here, we wanted games. Tetris Worlds. It's impossible to have a game console without, from this era specifically, especially, but pretty much any game console without having some form of Tetris on it. Super Monkey Ball Jr., a noble attempt if nothing else, but I think I'll stick to the console versions, which are still awesome, by the way. Still great. Spyro something, Spyro Season of Ice. These Spyro games on Game Boy Advance, not like the Crash games where they were like kind of good. Dynasty Warriors Advance. This is a very strange one. Once again, another noble attempt, but I don't know. I'm not a big Dynasty Warriors fan anyway, but the novelty is there at least. Sonic Advance 3, like I said earlier, pretty good ones. Mario vs. Donkey Kong. I was never huge on this series. It's like a puzzle, you know, the Mario and Donkey Kong puzzle games. They released like 10,000 of them. I was just never really huge on this series, but it's you know, fine. They remade this Game Boy Advance game for the Switch for God knows what reason, and even I didn't buy that. And I buy every Nintendo Switch game essentially, and even I didn't buy that. This is one of those games, I don't know what the deal is. It feels like every Game Boy Advance slot I found at a garage sale has a copy of this game in it. I've probably had 10 copies of this game at some point. Frogger's Adventures. It's not really even that good. Did people just see Frogger? It was probably Bargain Bin Game or something, and people saw Frogger, and they're like, oh, I know that. I don't know. It's not anything too spectacular. But I guess, you know, Rocket Power Dream Scheme is another one that I had when I was a kid. Madden 2003. Go Madden. Go Madden. And another one I had as a kid was Batman Begins. I remember this one being decent, but I don't know. But I think I've made it through all of my childhood Game Boy Advance games. For the most part, maybe. There might be still some sitting around somewhere else. Kirby and the Amazing Mirror. This one's pretty fun. It's cool that this is on the Switch online, and you can play a multiplayer because this is a multiplayer game. Pretty cool game. It's like a Kirby Metroidvania almost. So if you've not played that one, it's worth a go. Pokemon Emerald. Gen 3 is not the gen that I have too much experience with, so I don't have too much to say about Pokemon Gen 3. Spy Hunter and Super Sprint Double Pack. Does it get more interesting than Spy Hunter and Super Sprint Double Pack? Mario Tennis Power Tour. Another one. Camelot sports games, but this one again has like an actual kind of fleshed out story mode. Namco Museum, another one I find out pretty commonly. Just, you know, a Namco Museum on the Game Boy Advance. Donkey Kong Country 2, once again, pretty impressive port for the time. And then finally, Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, which a full new Final Fantasy Tactics game. It's a pretty good one. I've never played all the way through it like a lot of these games, but what I played, I was like, yeah, this is cool. I've never really played it because I'd like to play the first Final Fantasy Tactics, which is a game that I've never made it all the way through before kind of going through that one and the DS one and everything. But there's so many games to play. I mean, what am I supposed to do, you know? What am I supposed to do? But that's my Game Boy Advance collection. A shorter video as far as my collection videos go, but still almost a half hour. So I'd like to know what you think. Any Game Boy Advance games I'm missing? Game Boy Advance, unless it's complete in box, is not a system that I go out of my way to buy stuff for. So like the cool games that I have, like complete in box, the ones I really like and stuff, or the, you know, the higher end games, but I don't find complete in box Game Boy Advance games that often. So my loose carts are almost entirely from when I was a kid and I threw away the boxes, or from garage sales and the like. So that's kind of my random one. So I know I'm missing some classics and everything. So if you see any Game Boy Advance games that I'm missing or that you recommend, make sure to leave a comment down below with what you think. Some games that I should give a chance that I maybe not played all the way through, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and until next time, I'd like to thank you for watching.